What's going on, guys? RibombatX in the house, and we are back with another EDL draft breakdown for Season 5. Team RibombatX have reunited after a playoff campaign last time in the monotype run, but of course, as this is Team RibombatX and not just the Robom for Bombies, I'm joined by my amazing teammate, GambitX. How you doing, man?
Doing well, thanks for having me.
Alright. And we're going to be breaking down a rather interesting draft from our perspective. We've got a pretty interesting team, filled with a lot of Pokemon that both of us wanted, which was nice, and a couple of Pokemon that we didn't necessarily agree on, but we both picked them either way. But starting off our team is a Pokemon that we both really wanted. We both saw it sitting down in Tier 2, which to be honest was an absolute steal for us. And that is going to be Kelvio. Now, Kelvio got access to Flip Turn in this generation thanks to the tutor moves, which actually makes it very nice because the one thing it was lacking was pivoting. Well, now it's got it. Also, with the ability Justified, it can be a little scary for Dark-type opponents, giving us a little bit of a boost. We're not necessarily going to be worried about the attack boost, but it's kind of a little bit of a nice little trick to work with. Often seen with specs, can be Life Orb as well, gets a lot of extra moves, gets a bit of nice little annoyance with things like Icy Wind, which can be good against speedier teams than us. We're not the fastest team in the world, so definitely interesting. Kelvio gives us a hell of a lot of options. It's a very hard-hitting special mon with a decent speed tier as well, especially in a slow metagame. So having access to this is a very nice start for us. But in order to make this work, we did need some bulk to go with it. So our next pick, Gambit, is Clef. Why don't you talk us through this one?
So, Clefable, it's actually our Tier 1 for the draft. We only got one. We took Kelvio around 1, so we didn't take our Tier 1. We were hoping we could end up getting our Tier 1 last round because everybody else picked theirs. But unfortunately, we were not able to. But we picked up Clef, which is great. It has Stealth Rocks, it has Heal Bell, it's Magic Guard, Teleport, it's, one of the top mons in Gen 8 Galar decks. It can be very threatening with Calm Mind Setup Sweeper, or Cosmic Power Stored Power, or even Belly Drum if that's what we feel like doing in one of the week.
Which, I wouldn't put it past us. We do like our creative sets. But, yeah, definitely a very solid mon for us and a good addition to our team. So, we got our special mon, we got a decent bulky mon, so let's have a look on the physical side. Next up on our team is gonna be Haxorus. Now, this is a mon I've personally not used all that much in draft, but I've definitely liked it a lot, and I especially like it even more in this generation thanks to access to Scale Shot. Scale Shot means it doesn't have to rely on Dragon Dance anymore, which is kind of nice. You can just run Sword Sense into Scale Shot, do a hell of a lot of damage off of that 147 attack stat. And again, its speed tier is perfectly fine. 97 in this metagame is actually above average, so we're looking decent. Also has access to Mold Breaker, so things like Rotom can't stay in on the Earthquake, anything like that. Definitely nice for us. Gets a lot of damage output in general. Gets a lot of coverage moves as well, which makes it a very strong sweeper. It can be a very solid wall breaker with a choice band as well. There's a lot of sets this thing can run offensively, and that is what I'm really excited for. I'm really looking forward to putting in some work with Haxorus, getting some sweeping going on, because I do like this mon. I've just never had the best opportunities to use it. Alright. So, next up on the picks, Gambit is going to be a Lola Whack. Why don't you talk about that one?
So, Lola Marak, it may not fit directly in, although I really like it as it's a very strong fairy resist, as well as with Lightning Rod it can be an electric immunity, but it's also an extremely strong wall breaker for us. It also provides Stealth Rock, which is really nice, but with Thick Club it effectively has 160 attack, which paired with some attacks like Poltergeist or Flare Blitz is just going to be hitting extremely hard. Also, if in the future, it's a really good Trick Room Sweeper, which is something we will likely be taking advantage of this season.
Yeah, it's worth pointing out that at this point in the draft, a lot of the good physical fires had already gone. Arcanine was taken, Incineroar was taken, Cinderace was picked in the same round that we ended up drafting this. So there's quite a lot of the physical fires that were taken. We looked at things like Chandelure, but not really a huge fan of it. Lola Whack is definitely an interesting mon. It's a mon that I think both of us have used before. I've definitely used it. I kind of like it. It's different, it's unusual, but it actually would make a lot more sense on this team with an actual Trick Room setter, so we picked one up. We picked up my favorite Trick Room setter in this generation, which is Orbeetle, of course. All being actually a very bulky mon in general with very decent stats across the board. It can definitely do a lot. It's one of the unusual Pokemon in the fact that it gets access to recover Hypnosis and U-Turn, as well as Sticky Webs as well if we want to run outside of Trick Room. Well, we do of course have the Trick Room option there. Gets Iron Defense, Body Press, things like that. Gets access to stored power with Calm Mind. It's got a lot of options available to it. It's got a couple of nice little coverage moves, but we may not be necessarily relying on them. Typically you see it run with Heavy Duty Boots, but also has the Frisk ability, which is an ability I think is incredibly underrated. Being able to scout for items at the same time as being able to set up on it is pretty nice. Definitely a viable option. The Trick Room definitely helps Alola whack out if necessary. We can even potentially run a Trick Room sweep of Clefable. That's been a thing I've done before, so that'll be a fun little shenanigan. What we got going on? Well, this thing's got a lot of utility available to us, as well as some pivoting, which is what makes this very nice. But we are still missing a Dark type, so next up we picked up Drapion Gambit, all yours.
So Drapion is one of my favorite Dark types in Draft, also being a grounded Poison type, which is great for picking up T-Spikes, and not only that, but we can set our own T-Spikes. It has access to Knockoff, Taunt, Sword Stance. I really like Assault Vest Drapion as it's a very nice special wall, really bulky. Then of course you have crit sets, so it has a lot of versatility that you can do a lot with, which is why it's an extremely strong pick with this, as well as of course giving us the Dark type and the grounded Poison that we did not have previously.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that it has two very nice abilities with Sniper and Battle Armor. Battle Armor preventing it getting crit is actually a surprisingly underrated ability, especially on a bulkier Drapion set, so definitely a very solid utility. Definitely gotta love the Psychic communities, especially when we've got a Kelvio on our team. Alright, next up on the pick, we were still missing a bulky Steel. That is something that we didn't have access to at this point. But looking at a lot of the bulky Steels that were left, there weren't too many left, but the one that I picked up was Copper Azure. Most people have known I've been pretty outspoken about Copper Azure. It's one of my favorite Steels, especially in this generation. Gets access to two very nice abilities in Sheer Force and Heavy Metal, depending on what we're using. Very slow, which makes it exceptional in Trick Room, which we do like. Gets a lot of power, moves like Heavy Slam, gets Power Whip of course, gets Play Rough, gets Earthquake, does also get Rocks, which is nice for us as well. We've got plenty of Hazard Setters on this team already. It's a very powerful offensive wall breaker. It's got decent enough bulk thanks to its HP stat, not the best defense and special defenses, but it can actually still take a hit or two, and it can dish out a hell of a lot of damage. We've got a lot of physical attack power on this team. Another 130 attacking mon. It's kind of insane for us. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to Copper Azure. It's a very potent Trick Room mon. Alright. And moving into this point in the actual draft itself, we kind of had an interesting position because we had a bunch of Hazard Setters, but we didn't actually have any removal at all. EXO was memeing on us in the draft chat while we got there. But sitting in there actually was Rotom Frost. A lot of the Rotoms were getting taken. This one was not. Rotom, of course, with access to Heavy Duty Boots, actually makes it not weak to hit rocks on the switch in, which is nice. Obviously, as a defogger, it's very solid. Blizzard is not the best stab move of choice, given its low accuracy, but it does get access to Volt Switch, can still Willow Hex, can still actually Poltergeist, which is kind of funny. Obviously, its primary job is to defog and pivot with Volt Switch. So it's a very solid mon, gets a lot of utility, gets Toxic of course, gets T-Wave and stuff like that, so it still has some utility for the team. Its primary job is obviously as a defogger, as well as a pivot, but it's an interesting one nonetheless. Ice type is actually somewhat underrated, in my opinion. It's not the best defensive type, but it's actually decent offensively, so hopefully we can put it to good use. But continuing our hazard removal train, Gambit, why don't you talk about Lorentis?
So next we have Lorentis, which is actually, it has access to defog, which is really weird. Most people don't look at it and think that, oh, this is something that is defog. So it has that going for it. Contrary is extremely nice. Of course, similar to something like Superior, it does learn Leaf Storm. As well as it also has access to Superpower. Then it also has Toxic and respectable bulk with only 70 HP, but it does have base 90 defenses, which is extremely useful. And Lorentis isn't something I've ever used, but I think it's one of the cooler design mons, and I really like it, so I'm really looking forward to using it this season.
Yeah, it's also an interesting one because of its speed tier. 45 speed, it's actually perfectly viable in Trick Room. It actually has decent options in the Trick Room speed tier, which is something that we've ended up pivoting into quite a lot, especially from our Alolan Whack pick. We picked a lot of Trick Room options, which is pretty nice for us. It gives us a lot of utility to play around. I definitely like it. If we can get this thing set up, it can actually sweep. It gets enough coverage to be able to do it. But last up, we were still looking for a ground type, because having extra electric immunity is nice. It takes the pressure off a Alola Whack. And last but by no means least, we picked up Krokorok, which is somewhat of an unusual pick. Obviously Crocodile, way better. But this thing with access to a Violite is actually not too bad. It has okay, passable defenses with a Violite. Obviously, Intimidate, Moxie, Anger Point, same abilities as Crocodile has. Just a little bit weaker. Does still get rocks, which is nice. Gets a few decent little coverage moves that we get to operate under. But yeah, this thing is a very solid psychic immunity as well as an electric immunity. We were missing a ground type, so we picked this up on a budget. I think it's definitely worth it for us. Having Intimidate is always nice. Definitely cripples the physical attackers. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Krokorok. Gonna be interesting. See how much we can put it in. But yeah, that is going to round up our EDL draft breakdown. Pretty interesting team. Let us know what you think about it. Let us know what you think we would change, because there's always some interesting discussion to be had. But either way, thank you guys so much for watching. My name is RibombatX. That's RibombatX.
Yep.
Stay safe, stay awesome, and we'll catch you guys in week 1. Take care.